thanks for coming. I was a little bit nervous when Tyrell asked if I'd be a host. I'm not real proud of what I'm showing you today, mainly because we've had a really tough last couple of years. If you couldn't tell, coming from the east side of the county over here, we're quite a bit drier. And then just, I guess, luck of the draw over the weekend, if you didn't see, we got a hailstorm that just pretty much wiped out a half mile all the way from here to Tuscany. So lost some beans, lost some milo. It is what it is. This is kind of the northern end of our deal. To be honest with you, we're pretty strung out. We go from here pretty much down to I-70, and so it's a real pain in the butt on the cropping end. Hence one of the reasons we don't do much cropping anymore. What tillable soils we do have, we actually rent that out to some neighbors, and then we utilize the residues and cover crops. There's a few fields just south here that we came by, but the majority of it's down south of Tuscany in the river bottom. So we got too strung out, but we've got some other grazing units down here, or down there, which has made fun this year because we are hauling water about every other day. In fact, this pasture we're in, actually some of Tyler's family's cattle's in here. We've got a windmill down here that can't keep up with the amount of cattle we've got in here. We've got a solar well here that we're actually hauling water into. There's a 3,000 gallon tank, and there's two other dry ponds and a dry pond here. So that kind of gives you a glimpse of what our summers look like. Where we're standing right now, there's just shy of 1,000 acres that kind of runs in a big, oh great. I don't know if that's any better, but there's just shy of 1,000 acres that kind of wiggles back through here. Do I not have it on?
Yeah, you do, but now I have a quick thing too.
Oh, okay.
Third
And
stop,
so
we're gonna get it all.
ideally we would have this all ran as one herd, but this has been a long time in the making. We actually are just about a year away from having an 800 acre unit up here, and it's kind of a mishmash of stuff. So this half section here runs in a big L. It's all native grass. And again, I'm not real proud of it just because it's been so dry. We've ran it a little harder than what maybe I'd like to do. Last year, when Adam and his crew came out, it actually looked worse than this. So I guess we have had some decent recovery. But the interesting part of this is native, but this quarter that starts here and runs the rest of the mile over, this 40 acres right here, this 40 acre paddock is old CRP that was put in '86. Then there's about 70 acres of CRP that was put in '87. And then there's another 40 acres that's partially native, and then there's a little bit of go back in the corner. And that's actually split. There's 4 paddocks in that cell there. And then you jump across the road, there's 20 acres of CRP again that went in '87. And then just shy of a quarter of native. And then clear over there on the other side of them trees is an 80 acre piece that my great grandparents farmed, but my granddad decided to go back to grass with that in 1960, and we won't be able to go over there. I was wanting to today, but that place is loaded with plains indigo. It looks like a forest, and everything out there is about that tall of the indigo, and then the grass is just a little bit shorter than it. It's extremely productive ground, but again, it's go back from, what would it be, 63 years ago. So kind of a neat setup, and then there's a half section of native on the back side of it. So I tell you that to just preface that the only thing that's preventing us from having this as one unit is water in that middle CRP. And by happenstance, if you can see on the knob, there's a couple old trees poking out of the ground. My dad got overzealous and had our neighbor come over with a dozer and push some trees out around an old trench silo. And in the process, he uncovered a hand-dug well that we had no idea that was there. And so we looked down in there, did some measuring. There's about 40 foot of water in that well. And so I was talking to Adam here, and Jeff's going to get this project. We're going to put a solar well, trench out about 600 feet, and place a tire tank hopefully next summer. So maybe another demonstration. But we do rotationally graze. The goal for this year, had it not been for the water, this would have actually been 3 cells. There was actually 400 acres here at one time. There's 80 acres right next door that we actually used to rent, and it fit really well. This is probably before your time. we could rotate through this baby really nice. Unfortunately, that thing came up for sale. There's an 80 of crop ground with it. I couldn't get it bought. Some folks out of California bought it, and they changed tenants. It is what it is. But we try to do the best we can with this. The interesting thing about this piece is we got a hold of it in 2015, and before that, it had pretty much everything done to it negatively that it could. It had been hayed, it had been overgrazed with steers, it had been not well taken care of thistle-wise. This thing had little bitty cedar trees all over it. I'm still not proud of the trees that are here, but we've really busted our tails to get it to where it is today. And again, it's not great, but it's a lot better than what we had when we started. I actually rent this pasture. The landowners are very environmentally conscious in terms of they don't like herbicides. They are very active in coming up here and walking their pastures. In fact, that's what kind of kept us from having a GPGI contract on this place, was they are a little bit tree cutting adverse. So I'm slowly doing away with them so that they can't notice. And so some of these bigger ones are the last ones to stay, and they will be eventually gone too, and then I'll have to explain myself. But so yeah, we've got cow-calf pairs on here, spring pairs. This, as I said, this is one of our custom grazed pastures. The rest of this is just commercial cow herd owned cows, and then down south in Saline County, we've got our kind of our commercial red Angus herd, and actually over in Mitchell County, we've got some cows over there too. So, like I said, we've got a little bit of everything here, but this is kind of the place I picked. I really wanted to get you up on top of the hill. Tyler and I were talking that's actually the picturesque view is up there on the hill, as you can see for miles, but that trail's a little rocky to get up, and so didn't want to tear up too many vehicles. But there's actually, I found 2 leks up there. There's about 18 to 24 birds that are residents there. Surprisingly, they do move around, even given all the trees that we've got, but there is 2 really nice resident leks up there. The other part that's really kind of neat about that, when we first took this place on, in that North 240, there's these little shrubs all over the place, and my dad and I are scared to death of shrubs, meaning buckbrush and some of those. So we started spraying, and after a while, it was like, we just can't keep up with it. And I was trying to explain to the landlord why we were spraying, because it was too big to dig. Well, then I had Adam and a couple range cons come out and tell me, no, that's actually good stuff. That's New Jersey tea. And so now we don't worry about it. And what I found interesting about that, and I think I've got this right, Doug told me that stuff normally doesn't show up this far west.
Yeah, we were surprised to see it.
And that place is almost, I mean, it's pretty uniformly covered, which drives me nuts from an aesthetic standpoint, but they say it's a good deal. There's also a tremendous amount of compass plant up there, which another, kind of sensitive species. But as you can see, I've got more brome out here than what I'd like to have. But I feel like everything else, diversity-wise, we've got some good natives out here. Big blue, little blue. What else? Indian grass, switchgrass. We've got some side oats and some hairy and blue grama in some of the shallower soils. But yeah, I feel like it's about as good as it's going to get for this year. We rotated off this 2 weeks ago, I think. That piece right there was rotated off a week ago. They're actually in that CRP, which we can drive out that way and you can see it. But those over there, I guess, were rotated about a week ago too. So kind of an overview. I'd turn it over to you, or if you got other questions.
Are you on a weekly rotation then?
Mm-hmm. Used to be, yes.
With the water situation in summer?
That, it just got thrown out the window this year. I am strictly trying to manage. I usually have my grazing stick with me, and I try to just manage it based off of usage. Used to be that we were pretty well timed graze, and we kind of knew based off of timing and normal moisture when to go. But this year we left out the hot wire in the middle, and so in fact early on we actually ran this whole thing as one deal, and I hated it, but it was that tank couldn't keep up, that windmill. And so that 3,000 gallon tank was kind of a lifesaver. But now I've kind of gotten my water hauling in place. We can kind of go back and forth, which still isn't ideal, but you just gotta modify your management for the year.
And you're grazing on whole herd then here?
We do, and that's, again, I don't like that. It's a lot easier just to have one big herd, but these are, of course, there's your Tyler's family's cattle, but hopefully after next year we get that water put in, we can just do one big herd again. Hopefully it'll rain again. So one of the things though, and I'll just put a plug in, there's a tool online called the Rangeland Analysis Platform that was kind of designed for the tree and brush encroachment deal. But what it's got is it's got a really cool aspect to it, and I've really been monitoring this pasture specifically. They do the satellites go over every 16 days, and so they'll give you a forage production every 16 days, but then you can look back to 1986 at the annual historical production. And so what I've kind of kept track of is, since we've taken over management of this, I compare that back to the long-term average. As I said, we got it in 15, and I guess it's just kind of gratifying to see that we are above average for annual production. I hope that's due to some of the things that we're doing differently, as far as removing trees, keeping invasive species at bay, doing some rotating, having more moderate stocking rates, and same goes for the rest of this. Although the rest of that's owned, it's been managed what I think is the right way for a lot longer. But it is just kind of interesting to go back and look at that data and see maybe, hopefully, what positive changes you made on the landscape. So,
Cade, when you did have water,
yep.
Did you typically graze them the paddocks once or twice, or what was kind of the management scheme at that time?
So we would normally get over stuff probably 3 times.
3 times?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to go to a lot shorter duration and not hit. Actually, this pasture, this 40 acres right here, hadn't been grazed for a year. So this, when we came off 2 weeks ago, that's the first time it had been grazed in a year. And that's kind of what I'd like to do to the rest of this. That's maybe a little bit too long, but in drought years, we had quite a few cattle in there, and there's a lot of grass left, and so I'm happy with that.
Right.
Yeah. That late season rest is just invaluable, and that's the tough part about this, is when we have to hit it multiple times, especially this 80, because then they concentrate all at the south end anyway because of water plus the south wind. We have to be real conscious about this piece right here and the grazing distribution, that we don't hit it too hard at the end of the season. And last year we had to, because we were in bad shape. We had water but no grass. This year we've got grass and no water. So yeah.
Would you be okay if we did infiltration?
Yeah.
And if we stole a little bit of soil
Yeah.
for aggregates
Yep.
later? Perfect. One observation, I put the spade in the ground.
Yeah, I couldn't pop out that. I had trouble popping out that last canvas. Here. So that's a pretty good size, right there. Plus, I hear something all the way down. I hear some sound coming down. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cutting through all the root mass. Wow. That's yeah. Let's put a canvas. Not there. So were you ever glaciated? Speaking of rocks, is Kansas ever glaciated?
Yeah.
Was it?
Northeast.
Northeast Kansas? Okay.
Yeah, those are old glacial till soils up there.
Yeah, 'cause we were glaciated half a dozen times or better. And resets your soils. Volcanoes and glaciers reset your soils. So where do we want to take this? Let's we're going to try to just find a spot, right?
What's your idea of filling out reading?
Well, so this year
We got a volunteer?
we actually
Somebody?
this piece here is only 80%.
Oh, we're going to be here all day.
We're more worried about the grass going in. Pulling out early. If we do pull out early, we'll usually wean calves early and leave the cows. But if we have to pull out everything early, that's pretty much a disaster.
Are we going to
Not
need
that it can't be
plastic
done, but
to pour the water on?
Probably not.
Probably not. We got
No,
pretty good cover, right?
Normally the cows
need a little
come
more,
off
Jay?
in September.
I
A lot
think
of
you're
times
good.
the cows
Are you pretty fairly,
we're-
fairly
in
level?
October, and then we'll take
No,
them
this
off.
thing probably needs to come down here.
But I don't ever
talking about?
finish
We're
on the
Kansas,
same
we're always
cell
level.
2 years in a row, and I never start the same
I
cell
opened
2
it up
years
to
in a
that.
row. So the
Okay, do we have a timer?
rotation's always off,
Anyone?
offset from what it was the year
I thought you were fired.
Well, I rehired
Oh,
him.
okay.
I rehired him.
We renegotiated.
We renegotiated. He apologized and I felt obligated.
Ready when you are.
Are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go.
And honestly, sometimes we will
So how long will this inch take?
in
Do I hear an
as
hour?
close as we can to a catch pin with a zero
About
bind.
45 seconds.
Do I hear
is
30
crazy.
The
minutes?
only 2 catch pins we have for this.
So that first one we did closest to the road ditch at the last site, what was that again?
245.
245? That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
That was pretty good.
developing water is not cheap.
So you always want to have a level site, reasonably level. Again, you'd want to do more than one. And but we're just going to do one for today. And then before my assistant pulls it out, it's always a good idea to take your spade and pop it out and then look how uniformly wet or dry it is. That tells you so much. If the whole thing is wet, that's kind of utopia. But it's a lot of times, the ones I pull out, they're partially dry, partially wet. And the water went through some macro pores and the water went through some regular pores. But then there were compaction areas where nothing happened. So it tells you, kind of gives you a state of the situation.
We just passed a minute.
I'm running out of water. Now I got a little bit left on that one side. Give it a little bit yet.
Kind of right on a mount too.
We are.
Is it pretty shallow soil up here?
Actually, this isn't terribly bad. You get up into that piece, and it gets pretty shallow real quick. But there is a huge draw that runs north and south on that west end. But it's got some pretty deep soil.
I didn't know. Because it's sandstone where it's shallow, right?
Yeah. We actually, there's a lot of Dakota sandstone, but there is some shallow liming about right in the center of this deal. You can kind of see the outcrop.
Right. I mean, I know we're supposed to be part of limestone country, but there ain't a whole lot of it really.
Right. Yeah, this north end is all double fenced, and all of it's limestone posts.
Really.
This isn't. We tore it all out and put
Right.
new fencing
Right.
a year ago. And this is actually the first year for that CRP to be grazed. We finally got the fence put up.
First one here. Did you get rain with that hailstorm?
The middle 80,
Pardon? Did you get rain with that hailstorm?
half inch.
I got just a little bit
Like a little bit.
down there. The whole thing
An inch
is
of hail and
done
half inch of
except
rain.
Hey, it's so moisture. Hail's got them out.
And it's weird. It
you're
just
gonna probably
started
have
by
to call
that
it.
seam field we came by, but then it just
Just shy of 3 minutes. 253.
253. So here's a question. What do we have? What's going on the top of this soil? What's going on here? Yeah. What is that? And why is it so granulated right under that thatch? What's happening?
Aggregates.
Yeah, we're building soils right there. And so he's got the cover on. So Cade's got a great cover here. And so it protects that area. And then we got continual live plant, and we got diversity of plants. We got so many of the soil health principles right here. Livestock integration, continual, diversity, minimal disturbance. You need some disturbance of some kind on rangeland, and that's where the different densities come into play. So we can disturb this site biologically.
So speaking of disturbance, I would mention this place hasn't been burned in eons. It was actually, there was a wildfire years ago. In the last few years, there's been some wildfires up on the north end of this place, but the landowner's fairly fire adverse, so we haven't got him talked into it. But all of this has been burned on a regular basis. So that's a different kind of disturbance.
It's a different disturbance. And so you look at this whole scenario in here, and he's got the live root sitting right in here and everything on top. And so consequently, I think there's a number of the soil health principles at one time. And we'll just pop this out and see if we can tell anything about what it looks like underneath. And then, what happened to my knife? Can I borrow someone's knife? I don't know where mine went.
Oh, is that it right there?
Oh, yep, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you left it at the other side.
Yep.
Too bad.
Yep. Okay. So, did it come through? Didn't really come through at all. Where did it go?
The roots.
Being absorbed.
Yeah, it's soil organic matter. So now you got high soil organic matter, you're going to absorb quite a bit of water. The water went out of the canister. It's gone, but you'd have to put a second inch in to start seeing it. Okay, so you got a little more water holding capacity. So anytime you bring your carbon level up, you hold more water. Also more nutrients. So it's a native rangeland. It's probably never been farmed. Never been farmed. So to me, these are pretty special sites. So I don't know what's happening in Kansas, but in North Dakota, these are a little less each year. And so we were losing our native rangeland, and they become cropland field in one day. And so look at it this way. There's probably, what'd you think, Cade? You got 70 plus plants an acre? 80 plus plants an acre? I don't know if you ever had an inventory on
We
here.
did some transects in that over there.
There's a lot of plants.
Yeah, and that one's probably more diverse than this one over here. And I'd say, I can't remember what was over
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
we actually had some, annual or little clovers and stuff showing up that I wouldn't have thought normally would survive because of the dryness. But a lot of
What is that?
What you got out here? What is that?
Oh, that's a prairie clover. Yeah, it's purple prairie clover, I think.
Yes.
It's got a purple flower, if that's an indication. Okay. And so when you have native rangeland like this and it goes to cropland, you've got, whether it's 50 plants an acre or whatever it is, they're all giving off a different exudate. And they're either fibrous root building aggregates or they're tap roots building macropores. And when it goes to cropland, we replace those with how many plants? One. So you see the difference when you try to improve your carbon levels on cropland. You see the challenge. It makes a lot of sense what Waco had at that first site. He had multi-species in there. It's a mimicking of what Cade has right now. And then it mimics it back to what built these originally. So in our situation, glaciated a number of times, then eventually perennials and the ruminants and the predators, and then this situation built soils. So
If you have an airplane spray it, you're gonna kill all that year anyway. It's gonna look nice, but you won't have that in the.
The only time we do any broadcast spraying is if we get to a point where some of these are affecting grazing distribution. Other than that, I actually contemplated spraying a couple draws up here a couple years ago with thistle issues, but doing it in the fall,
Yeah.
and then decided against it. But we do plenty of spot spraying, but we don't really like doing the indiscriminate broadcast.
okay, here's a little better scenario. I just cut it. I cut the core across the center, and you can see how far the water got. It absorbed all the water in about 3 minutes, but nothing came out of the bottom. So a whole different situation, but you can see where it absorbed all the water. So that's pretty cool.
So it's going to take you 2 or 3 inches to build up subsoil moisture, because that's how dry you are.
Well, we had an inch 70
June 30th?
something like a month ago, and then beyond that, that's our only inch plus moisture event we've had, and consequently, we haven't had any runoff.
But I suspect not much runoff. So when you put a grazing system, our experience was locally when we put the grazing systems in, our ponds dropped. Why did your ponds drop? water level in the ponds went way down when the grazing system started to function. Yeah, lack of runoff. Now the water was infiltrating and being stored, and you got all this additional carbon, you can hold additional water, and the pond levels dropped. And the guys that were still season-long grazing had no grass, but they had water. So it's an interesting, it tells an interesting story. You know.
Cut the cedar trees in your pasture, and the springs start running too.
Say again?
If you cut the trees in your pasture, your springs will start running maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So what can you do to change, to boost this anymore? Is it maxed out with rotational grazing and all that?
I think it depends on how far, you know, to me it depends on the ranch goals. Because, you know, there's economics, there's quality of life, there's other partners, right? And so if you want to come in here with really high densities and daily moves, you probably got another level. That might not fit your quality of life, so you got to weigh that part out. Or maybe you don't, maybe you like moving cattle once a week, or maybe you like moving them every 2 weeks, but maybe you don't like moving them daily. You know, you balance that all out. Is there another level? Yeah, I think you can go another level. There's generally always another level, right? Generally always. But the ranchers I've worked with over the last 40, 45 years, I always ask for a written statement. Give me your written goals. And then I got a pretty good idea. You know, if it says right on there, hate cattle, okay, we gotta handle you a little differently than the last guy. So, you know, you find your way, but the goals, man, a written goal from someone that sat down with all the stakeholders, everybody that's involved in the operation, and your spouse, children, sit down, then it gets more united. You know, if you decide to go to this extra level, everybody's on board instead of one person trying to convince the rest of the stakeholders. That's really tough. So you know, you want to get them united. I love rangeland. I appreciate what you're doing, Cade. I mean, this is truly sequestering CO2 and maintaining it. So there's sequestering and there's maintaining. This does both. This one does both. And you grow a good product on that.
I hate to break up the conversation, but to be fair to the caterer, we're already going to be late. We want to head back to the building. We'll have lunch ready.